Orthodox Monasticism. The contribution of Orthodox monasticism as an authentic witness and expression of the Orthodox ecclesiastical tradition is immense and of great importance for the salvation of human society and the universe as a whole. It is a well-known fact that monks pray constantly for the salvation of all. It is also well known that they contribute a great deal to society, either through the various ministries they perform or through the philanthropical work of the monasteries. Thus, monasteries have always played an essential role in social and spiritual life, as they have been an important factor in their development. The monk, in a spirit of self-denial, takes up the sweet cross of total obedience to God's commandments and the charges of his abbot. Through observing the commandments, and particularly the two most important ones, to love God with all his heart and soul and to love his fellow men in similar fashion, he joins the ranks of the angels and partakes in divine grace. His angelic way of life makes him a source of blessing and a model worthy of imitation. By imitating monks, those living in the world have a positive effect on the social reality of the outside world. A monk's life is devoted primarily to divine worship and unceasing prayer, the noetic prayer of Jesus. The central place for prayer in Orthodox monasteries is the Catholicon, the main church of the monastery, where, in a spirit of profound penitence, with pure souls and blameless lips, the monks worship the triune God and honor the saints. Apart from this, the monk, recalling the ascetic struggles and labors of the Holy Fathers before him, whose ascetic endeavors were pleasing to God, zealously applies himself to the holy struggle against the passions and the temptations of this world. His struggle will last a lifetime and will always be governed by obedience to his elders' instructions and the performance of his monastic duties. Holy Meteora. In the heart of Greece lies a unique outcropping of huge rocks that stand upright, reaching toward heaven. During the 12th century, ascetics first started to arrive at these rocks and found caves in the cliff sides of these rocks, where they lived in prayer and asceticism. Over time, they organized into a lavra, with a main church for worship, called a Catholicon. One of the fathers served as a spiritual overseer of the ascetics. During the 14th century, other ascetics, a large number of them from Mount Athos, came to these huge rock outcroppings and started to rebuild the smaller churches and cells and to organize the monastic brotherhoods into coenobiums. Among the first who came to Meteora at this time and whose example and influence would serve as a rule for monasticism on Meteora thereafter, was Saint Athanasius, later surnamed the Meteorite, who had come from Mount Athos with his spiritual father, Saint Gregory the Stylite. They settled on what was called the Broad Rock around 1333 and began organizing the monastic life of the fathers as a coenobium. After his elders' repose, Saint Athanasius became abbot of the monastic brotherhood, and further organized monastic life, according to the hesychastic spirit that he had learned at Mount Athos, at what was now called the Monastery of Great Meteoron. Meteoron, in Greek means, the rock suspended between heaven and earth. Saint Athanasius was such a radiant figure on Meteora, that his teachings, miracles and examples set the future course of monasticism on Meteora. Around 1372, John Palaeologus, who was ruler over Thessaly, Greece, forsook the life in the world to become Saint Athanasius's spiritual son and dedicated his life to Christ in obedience to his elder. He was given the monastic name, Joasaph. After the repose of Saint Athanasius, Saint Joasaph became abbot of the Brotherhood of Great Meteoron for many years. Other ascetics at about this time, and later on, started to come to Meteora, and they began to found several monastic brotherhoods and build the majestic monasteries that are still standing there to this day. Meteora was in decline. The monasteries had undergone ruin to various extents, and many sacred artifacts had been stolen. However, through the faith and labor of one bishop, Dionysius, Metropolitan of Tricky and Stego, where the monasteries of Meteora belonged, preserved the monasteries and rejuvenated monastic life. With his love and service, he brought the people of the diocese together like a family, and inspired many young people, not only to be conscientious Christians, but many of them to become monks and nuns. One of these young people was Elder Aemilianos, who was Metropolitan Dionysius' spiritual son. The Metropolitan enthroned him as abbot of Great Meteoron, and the brotherhood grew with new monks. The Metropolitan fell asleep in the Lord in 1970. Some time after that, the monastic community of Mount Athos sought Elder Aemilianos to bring his brotherhood from Meteora, and to become abbot of the monastery of Simonos Petra, in order to reinvigorate monastic life at that monastery as well. And so, Elder Aemilianos went with his brotherhood from Great Meteoron to Simonos Petra in 1973. There he and the brotherhood cared for the elderly monks of the monastery and inspired many to become monks under him. Not only did he reinvigorate monastic life at the monastery of Simonos Petra, but also on the Mount Athos in general. He is considered to be the patriarch of monasticism in the modern age. The elder fell asleep in the Lord in 2019. His spiritual son, Elder Dionysios, who was given the name of Metropolitan Dionysius, has continued the work entrusted to him by the Metropolitan and his elder, Aemilianos, in bringing people near and far into the Orthodox Church and founding monasteries in Greece and abroad. In closing, we offer some of the venerable words, spoken by these three elders, for the benefit of our listeners. First, the following is an excerpt taken from a book, written by Metropolitan of Tricky Dionysius, regarding the monasteries of Meteora. Hence, with the help of God and the intercessions of the holy founders, the ancient, sacred aim of the monastery will blossom once again. It will again find its realization through new endeavors, precisely as its venerable founders have formulated this aim in their testament, that the brethren may be saved, and that they may save others, placing themselves and their actions as an example. The second is an excerpt taken from a homily of Elder Aemilianos, regarding the practical exercise of martyrdom in everyday life. You ought to demonstrate the mindset of a martyr, wherever your daily arena is, in your home, with your husband, with your wife. When your husband comes home tired from work and speaks to you rudely, don't become angry. If he insults you, don't talk back. Show him love, forbearance, patience. Or if your wife has burned the food, don't shout at her, you eat it. Squeeze a little lemon juice on it to make it tastier, and tell her that the food is wonderful, so that she won't realize that she burned it. Love ought to reign within the home. When you see that the spouse of your life has wronged you, don't shout, saying that you are right. It doesn't matter if you are right or not. It doesn't matter what is correct, but rather what the other person wants. Take yourself out of the middle. Deny yourself. Put the other person before you. This is death. This is martyrdom. And lastly, here are some words, spoken by Elder Dionysios, regarding our relations with other people. The entire universe and eternity belong to whomever is faithful to one person, but whoever is not faithful to one person has lost himself. The root of love is not judging anyone ever. Our wings are the other person, whom we take upon ourselves.